Hi everyone, and welcome to International Women in Engineering Day 2020. Welcome to the Department of Engineering. So today we have got some wonderful speakers who are coming to talk to you just about a bit about engineering and to give you an idea of what it's like and answer any questions you may have about the subject. So whilst you've been waiting here, we've put up this word cloud, and I hope you've had a look. So let's go and see what kind of things you already know about engineering. So I can see a lot of people saying interesting, entertaining, which is great. Thank you. Things like bridges, definitely. Excited, creative, make. So yeah, that's basically engineering. So thank you. That's really cool. We've got our speakers today who will come and chat to you about what they do as engineers. So today we are joined by Emma, Joana and Liz, who are three of our DPhil students, which means they are currently studying for a PhD to get those 2 letters of doctor before their name. And they'll be talking to you about the kind of thing that they do on a day-to-day basis before answering some of the questions that you've pre-submitted or question. And if you have any questions whilst we're live now, please type them into the chat box. They'll come through to us. We'll be able to read them. We'll read out your questions and then we'll see what they have to say. Just a little aside, this event is being recorded, but as you're not on camera or on microphone, it will only record the people on the screen at the time. So yeah, without further ado, so we're going to first go to Joana, who is one of our DPhil students. So Joana, you want to come and say hi?
Thank you.
So Joana, do you want to share your screen for us? Amazing. And
yes,
off you go.
Okay. Hi, so my name is Joana. I'm actually a postdoctoral research assistant, so I just finished my DPhil. I work at the Department of Engineering, and I will talk a bit about my work and what motivated me to choose biomedical engineering. So, first of all, I am from Portugal, a really beautiful country next to Spain with great sunny weather and lots of beautiful places to visit. It is also the home country of someone who most of you probably recognize. Yes, Cristiano Ronaldo. So as background, at around your age, I really enjoy a lot of different disciplines, ranging from maths to biology. I really didn't have a favorite one, so that is why I decided to study biomedical engineering. I enjoy science, but I also like to develop tools that could actually help people. During my studies, I tried out different areas from computer science to biomechanics, but one thing that really interested me was the brain. So yes, it is impressive that this beautiful organ controls our thoughts, movements, memories, our decisions. And even though it only weighs a tiny fraction of our total body weight, it uses around 20%, a fifth of all of our body's energy. Impressive, right? The brain is always active. Yes, even when we are sleeping, we still have to breathe and having a heartbeat, right? There are billions of nerve cells that we call neurons that communicate with your body. But diseases like dementia or Parkinson's disease that most of you heard of can limit the normal function of our brain. So one way to visualize the brain is by using a technique called MRI, which stands for magnetic resonance imaging. This is a non-invasive and safe technique that uses a machine like this one right here that has a really strong magnet and creates radio frequency waves to produce images. This technique relies on the different property of tissues. While inside the machine, it can become quite noisy. And if people lay still inside it, we can get clear and detailed images of our body. Nevertheless, MRI can also be used to image other parts of the body, as we will see from next presentations. So I work with brain MRI, and as I mentioned previously, we can use MRI to visualize and understand how brain works. Here is a picture of my brain, I assume a healthy one, in different perspectives. We can see the different areas and different tissues. Beautiful, right? So different areas of the brain have different functions. For example, here in the occipital area, on the back of your head, for example, is the visual cortex. But we can also use MRI to detect and study specific diseases. And here is an example of someone with small vessel disease. You can clearly see some lesions here around this area that we call white matter. So in my work specifically, it involves the study of blood vessels inside the brain. As you know, blood vessels allow the transport of oxygen, nutrients to the brain, so it is crucial that they are in good shape. In order to accommodate for this energy demand, the vessels have this intrinsic mechanism that allows them to dilate or constrict, called cerebrovascular reactivity. This is how the vessels react to a stimulus. They can increase the size or not, dilate or constrict. In fact, this mechanism has been shown to be impaired and sometimes abolished in specific brain diseases, making it really important to understand these mechanisms. But what do we need when we want to study reactivity? First, we need to make the vessels react. And for that, we usually use carbon dioxide. That is a molecule that actually leads to dilation of vessels. Then when the vessels dilate, the blood flow also increases. And this is where MRI comes in. It measures this increase of cerebral blood flow. But again, not all areas of the brain react the same way or at the same time. And here are an example of some maps of this reaction time here on the right, and also the amplitude of the reaction here on the left. So my work is to understand if the cerebrovascular reactivity is a reliable parameter that can detect if someone has a specific disease or will develop that disease in the future. And here we also have an example of a healthy brain here with the time on the bottom and the amplitude on the top. And here you have an example of a stroke patient, and you can clearly see that the images look quite different. So in this way, we can detect that the person had stroke. So just to finalize, my take-home message for you is always be curious. Try to understand how things work and why. One way to do that is by asking questions. Don't be shy or doubt yourself, just ask away. Another thing that is important is to be patient. Sometimes things don't work out the way you planned them, but that is okay. Reach out for help because really no one knows everything and most people are actually happy to help you. But most importantly, at your stage, you are young, so try different things and see what you like best. Because in the end, anyone can change the world yet, even you. And I would also like to recommend to watch some really exciting videos on YouTube. If you search for Dan Bolte webisode, you can see some really cool videos. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you very much, Joana. So next up, we've got Liz Pickles, who is coming to talk to you as well. So, Liz, are you ready?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep. Awesome. Off you go.
Yeah. Okay. Hi everyone. So my name's Liz. So I'm afraid I don't come from anywhere quite as exotic as Portugal. I'm actually originally from Oxford itself. But when I was your age, I never expected to end up at Oxford University, and I didn't really expect to end up doing engineering either. So, so when I was in year 6 and year 7, I was really thought maybe my interests were more in history and geography. But as I progressed up through secondary school, I started to really enjoy more of the maths and science subjects. But even at GCSE, I chose a wide range of subjects. And then came to really enjoy maths. I think things started to click into place. I started to understand why things happened, and it got more interesting to me as I understood it more thoroughly. So then at A level, I chose more sciencey and maths as my subjects. And then I went on to university. I actually didn't do engineering as my degree. I did maths and physics, but obviously they're closely related to engineering. And through that, I kind of realised that my interest was in a very much applied maths and physics, seeing it in the real world. And that means a lot to me, to actually see where my skills can go and where I can help other people. And like Joanna, my field is biomedical engineering, which is a really nice area to sort of really make a difference to people's lives. But obviously all types of engineering are really important, whether it's civil or electrical. You know, every engineering is kind of applied science, and where we're really using our skills to help everybody else. And one thing I just also like to point out here is not only I didn't really expect to do engineering. I'd never sort of really put myself with Oxford. And when I was when I went up into year 7, I was put into Middlesex maths. So you might think, well, surely you should be top set. But actually it was, you know, people change over time, and some people who were originally in top set might, you know, end up when they get to GCSE not doing so well. Whereas I kind of, as I grew to love things more and really enjoyed my studying and enjoyed the subjects, I kind of really got into them and ended up coming out with reasonable grades, which has enabled me to get where I am. So don't limit yourself and try really hard, and you don't know where you might end up, and also explore lots of different areas. I would recommend, you know, looking into things like engineering, which you might not really think about. So now I'm going to talk to you a bit more about my research. Now I'm afraid, well, I thought at one point, oh, I really want to do brain, but actually I've ended up looking at this organ. I don't know if you know what it is. I suspect some of you at least do. It's the liver. So this actually is surprisingly large. You might expect it to kind of be small, but it is quite large. And it does lots of important things, and people don't really think about the liver as much as maybe their lungs or the brain or the heart. But it, you know, if it doesn't work, it's you know, a bad news for you. So what does the liver actually do? Well, it does about 500 different functions. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff it does. Some more obviously really essential, others maybe less so, but all very you know, very important. So some things, for example, are breaking down fats using bile, which it produces. So if you eat lots of fat, it will produce bile and break that down for you into useful, into smaller parts. It also stores the vitamins and minerals, which you all probably know, they're very important to keep healthy. Stores and releases glucose, that's your energy, like sugar, to keep you going, and it removes toxins, so things that are poisonous to you, it will remove so it doesn't poison you. So lots of really important things. But like any organ in the body, it can get injured, and actually, like your skin, when you kind of injure it and you might fall over and you get a graze, the liver gets scarred as well, and this is called liver cirrhosis. And when it gets to kind of this advanced stage of liver disease, where your liver gets really scarred, it can have lots of, you know, it can really affect you. You know, your skin will go yellow, you'll be sick, you'll get lots of water building up in your legs, and, you know, it can cause very severe illness. And how can you injure your liver? Well, there's a variety of ways that your liver might get injured. One you're probably aware of, what you might be aware of, is alcohol. So if you have a lot of alcohol over a long period of time, then you can end up injuring your liver. Also viruses, obviously we're all very aware of viruses at the moment, but viral hepatitis are things like hepatitis B and C, and they particularly affect the liver and can cause this liver injury. And similarly, fatty liver disease causes liver injury, but that's more due to your diet and exercise habits, and can build up fat, basically builds up and injures your liver. And iron overload is another thing. This is more to do with, as most often inherited, so you get it from your parents, and it can cause liver injury as well. So where does engineering come into all of this? Well, as you might have guessed, I'm afraid we've got two quite similar areas to talk about today, but it's MRI. So Joanna's also already given you a nice introduction to MRI of the brain, and MRI of the brain was kind of like the first area that people really looked into MRI, but it's really important in other organs too, and liver is one of them. And so, as Joanna mentioned, it's basically a big magnet that you're put into, and then you're hit with, then there's radio waves, and then your different tissues give off different signals, and also different tissues, depending on how healthy they are, can give off different signals. And one signal that we look at is T1. So T1 is kind of a measure you'd get from an MRI scan, and you can build up images of these, and these can tell you about the tissue health, in particular for the liver. So what we can do from this is we can build up an image. So basically a low T1 we can colour as green, and that means that it's healthy tissue. This is in terms of the liver. And if you have a high T1, so if you have big values, then this can then we colour that kind of a more orangey red colour and in the liver, and that means the liver's unhealthy. So I've just shown up two images here. So on the left we've got a healthy person, on the right we've got unhealthy. So basically this is a section across your body. So if you like chopped yourself, you say had your just above your hips, and you chopped your body there in a kind of half, then you'd find that you'd get this kind of picture. Your liver isn't actually green, I'd hasten to add, or red, or well, it is a reddish colour, but this isn't reflecting the actual colours, this is reflecting the values. So here you can see the green thing on the left that's your liver, and that means that this person's got a healthy liver because they've got low T1. Whereas on the right we've got a patient with an orangey liver, so that the large orange thing is the liver on this one, on the left of the image, and that's sort of an unhealthy. It's not really unhealthy, but it's getting diseased. So by this we can look into the liver, into the body, and see stuff that we wouldn't be able to see otherwise. Without doing something called a biopsy, which is where they basically poke a needle into you and take out this really painful experience to pass it right into your liver and then pull out some tissue. So we don't want to do that, and if we can do this, we do this imaging in an MRI scanner, it's much nicer for a patient and can tell us important information for the doctor. So for me in particular though, so I'm as just been mentioned, I'm a DPhil student, so I've got a project that I'll be working on for 3 years, and mine's looking at cancer. So a lot of you will have heard of cancer, I expect all of you. Some of you may know people with cancer. It's a terrible disease, and in particular in the liver. If you get cancer of the liver, it's usually not too good. Well, it's not good. So we want to do all we can to help these patients and make either be able to see the cancer earlier, so we can treat when it's more treatable, so that means we're more likely to cure people. We also want to be able to know more about the cancer itself, that might inform us as to what kind of treatment. They're all different. These cancers, they're all called cancer, but actually biologically they're all pretty different. So we need to sort of think about what kind of biologically might be different. If we can image that, then we can target our treatment depending on maybe the particular biology of the tumour, of the cancer. And as you can see in these pictures, these are all patients with cancer, and you might be able to spot, you can have a look at this and you can probably spot some of the cancers, particularly say for example the top left, there's that big bulge, that's the tumour, whereas some are quite small and maybe look a bit more neat. So the one below that, you can see sort of a little round thing at the top, that's the tumour. So they're all very different, and if we can drilling down into this and understand a bit more about this, and no one's done this before, so it's kind of exciting stuff, and trying to understand what these images tell us and whether they have a clinical application. And I think that sort of brings me to the end of my talk, but hopefully it shows you that this is where we can really do things that will make a difference to people's lives using engineering, and that's what I love about engineering and biomedical engineering in particular. Thank you.
Cool, thank you very much, Liz. So we're now going to go over to having some questions from the audience. So we've had a few live ones already. So I think the first one was probably best for you, Liz, and that's, do you need to take physics to be an engineer?
Okay, so do you need to take physics to be an engineer? Well, actually now I have to confess I didn't take physics. I did physics as my degree, but actually as a GCSE I took science in general, to double science award. I didn't go for the 3 separate. You can take 3 separate. I did double science because at that stage I wasn't sure. And actually for A level I did chemistry, maths, further maths, geography, history. So no, the reason why was because my degree, I chose a particular degree where it kind of let me do kind of, it covered A level in the first few weeks, so it was pretty easy to get to speed. I mean, I think physics is very relevant, and physics, I would recommend you take physics. I kind of regret that I didn't. I don't know why I didn't really, but at that stage I didn't really know. I don't think for most engineering, it's probably a good idea to have physics, but don't. And so at this stage, I mean, you've got the flexibility to choose what you want. So I would say choose it if you enjoy it. Why not? But if you get to the stage where you actually decide later on in life you want to do engineering, you're like, I can't do it anymore. I think there's so many options out there that you have the flexibility to kind of go back and maybe do a course that will make you up to speed with the physics. But engineering does involve a lot of physics. So yeah, I'd recommend taking it if you can.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And then, so question 2 from Beatrice we've had is, what made you decide to be an engineer? So Joanna, what made you decide to be an engineer?
That is a really good question. I guess there are different types of engineers. For me, since I decided to do biomedical engineering, what really motivated me was the end goal. So to develop tools that actually would make a difference and help people. And I thought biomedical engineering was a great fit because it involved a bit of everything, from biology to chemistry to physics to maths. Also design, and is something that would improve people's quality of life. So that was my main motivation. Also, I'm not good with blood, so the medical doctor option wasn't really a good fit for me. So I think it was a good compromise, helping people and develop great tools.
Awesome, thank you. And then we've also had another question from Alice that said, have you ever had an MRI scan?
Well, actually, I had quite a few of the brain, because I work with brain MRI, and I've been a volunteer to many projects. And I have really cool pictures of my brain, also doing tasks to see my visual system, my auditory system. So it's really interesting to see your brain, because you wouldn't imagine how it looks like. So yeah, I had a few MRI scans. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you very much. And then, so we've had another question from Bella, which says, what skills do you need to become an engineer? So I think we're going to go over to Liz and see, Liz, what questions, what skills do you think you need to become an engineer?
So I think you need to be inquisitive and question in mind. You really need to want to explore things further. It's no good kind of just accepting things as they come along. You kind of want to know why. I think you always want to have that question, why does this work like it does? What's the reason? Is there kind of some, is there some kind of maths, or what's the science behind things? You need to have a problem-solving mind. So you need to kind of, if you're faced with a problem, you don't just say, oh, well, I can't do that, it's too difficult. You kind of really keep trying and keep trying and keep trying again until you feel satisfied. And then when you do, you get a real buzz. And I think that's a true sign of an engineer. That's what I've kind of heard a lot of people say. I think you also need to be able to kind of, I think one of the things with kind of, if you do want to do like pure maths, you can do pure maths, but then you never sort of get that bigger picture. And I think being an engineer is kind of about wanting to understand and see the bigger picture and understand how you're look at applications. So it's not satisfying enough just to sit down with a piece of paper and get an answer. You want to be able to look at it in the bigger world and say, oh, well, I helped design that bridge, or I did that, it helped develop that thing that's helping in this way. So I think those are kind of the key skills that I've found are helpful so far.
Amazing. So it's kind of a lot of different things then, and you could have all sorts of skills. So we're going to a pre-submitted question now from Adam, which is, how important are environmental issues in your job? We'll go to Joanna for this.
That is also a really important question. Yeah, you wouldn't assume medical engineering would have an impact on environment, but actually the energy consumption of an MRI is high compared to other alternatives. The carbon emissions are also quite high, and sometimes we use some elements for contrasts that also have an environmental impact. Of course, with scanner upgrades, we have to dispose of some scanners and recycle them. But luckily, we have societies that actually worry about these issues and are now working on finding efficient solutions for these problems. So yeah.
Cool. So there is a lot of things happening that it is actually adapting to how the world is changing. So next we've got what's the best part of your job? So Liz, what's the best part of your job? Liz, I think you're muted, so sorry, we had a brief moment of silence. Sorry, yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry about that. So I was just saying that actually it's quite a hard question to answer because there's several parts of the job that I like, but one bit in particular I think is I get to work with a lot of different people. So I get to work with people from, so the part of engineering I work with, I get to work with physicists, MR physicists, I get to work with people who are doing image processing, I get to work with doctors, I also get to work with people from across the globe. So I have collaborations, for example, in Singapore, one coming up in China, hopefully with other universities in the UK, with companies, etc. So there's kind of being able to, biomedical engineering is really cross-discipline and global. So you get so many different opportunities to talk to so many different people of so many different backgrounds, and that's great. And I guess the one other thing, I know this is kind of stretching the question a bit, but the one other thing that I would say was really good is that sense of satisfaction you get about kind of with engineering, it's kind of like something, you get something to work and then you get that sense of satisfaction, and those are some of the best days when you can kind of feel like you've solved something that you've been struggling with for days.
That sounds really cool. So it's a lot of different things. Joana, what's the best part of your job? Is it similar things or slightly different?
Exactly. I think it's similar to what Liz said. So we do different things every day, and we can come up with amazing things and create something that can have an impact in the world. But for me, the best part is definitely the people that I interact with. Different backgrounds, different countries. We get the chance of going to conferences and meet these people and learn what they do and integrate their knowledge and in our tools. So I think overall the experience of different backgrounds and the diversity of every day, it's really awesome to have that. And for me, to study the brain is something that I really enjoy, and I think it will have a massive impact in the future.
Oh, great, thank you. And then we've also got Emma online, who has also got an answer to this. So Emma, what's the best part of your job?
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Hi. Sorry that I couldn't present earlier. I did record it and put it on YouTube for you all. I just have another presentation going on at the exact same time. So the best part of the job is that every day is very different, and I absolutely love that. So some days I am doing experiments like hands-on in the lab, with a lab coat and chemicals and having fun with that. Some days I'm at the MRI scanner doing big hands-on experiments there. Like Liz said, sometimes you're more in a hospital and doing scans there. And then some days it's just me and my computer, and I'm computer programming. And then you know, since we're doing research, a lot of the time we have to write that up. So there's also a lot of reading and writing. So reading other people's work, learning more. You're always learning. You can always take time to learn new skills. And then writing up your research and making pretty images of everything that you've done. I really like it. It's like, if I ever get tired of the one thing, I can just move over to another task and it's fresh. And what are the challenges of being a woman in engineering? So we answered this in kind of a Word document. We all gave a response. For me, it's been a very positive experience. I've ran into a few old-fashioned people, and they haven't been in my department, you know, my groups or anything. I've always been really lucky to have wonderful people in my lab groups. There are sometimes a few old-fashioned people at maybe a conference, and nothing horrible. They just maybe treat you slightly differently, or maybe in a belittling way, just because they think you're cute, or that you don't believe that you're a physicist. But I think that that's really old-fashioned now, and it's not how people are today. And it's changed a lot since even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So yeah, it's been a very positive experience.
Amazing, thank you very much. So we've got another question from Anna, which is what types of engineers are there? So Liz, can you answer this?
Well, I have to say I'm not an expert. I don't know if Joana is, but because I've always done, well, I did maths and physics, and then I did biomed. I went straight into biomedical engineering. But obviously there are a lot of other types of engineering, and we've covered, one today, but wouldn't do it justice. That doesn't cover engineering. It's just only a tiny part of engineering. There's so many different aspects, and there's obviously the main types like you might have heard of civil engineering, electrical engineering, and all those types of lots of other more traditional engineering areas. And then there'll be ones that you haven't heard of, like you might not have heard of biomedical engineering before today, and there'll be plenty of others. And I recommend that you go online, you have an explore, you see. But basically, whatever you see, anything that's been made has got an engineer behind it. So it's just the list is pretty much endless, I would say.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Engineering covers every part of our lives, and as Liz said, this is covered one part of engineering, which is the biomedical aspect, but there is so many different things. We've had another question from what was pre-submitted by Jack, who says, what would you say is the most difficult thing in becoming an engineer? So Joana, what would you say the most difficult thing?
I don't think I have experienced any major barriers. Again, about the women in engineering. So most people assume that engineering is for boys, but it is not. There are a lot of women in engineering, and actually we bring a new perspective into the mix. And a lot of scientific breakthroughs were made by amazing women. So yes. On my daily life, I would say that sometimes things don't work out the way we want them to. So we have an hypothesis and we want to test it. And sometimes we go on a path that doesn't work out. So we have to go and step back and try different things. So as long as you stay curious and you try to understand what is happening and try to find solutions, everything will work out. But yeah, sometimes it's hard when things don't go as planned. So yeah, but you have to stay together and work hard, and things will get done.
Awesome, that sounds really inspirational actually. There's been another question submitted live by Alice, who says, past or present, are there any engineers that stand out for you, or anything to do with engineering that stands out to you?
I can take that one. I mean, for me, I think it's really important to have role models, definitely. And I had a professor, actually. She was a really young woman, and she had an amazing career path, and that was my role model. But then there are other people like Marie Curie, that I'm going to talk more about biomedical engineering and all these people. But yeah, I think there are a lot of it. Everything that is built has an engineer behind it. So yeah, but for me, my role model would be my professor, my advisor, that really introduced me to MRI, to the brain. So she was my role model.
That sounds really cool, to have that role model there who was able to talk to you and to kind of inspire you to go on and do these things. I'm just saying with you, Joanna, a minute, we've had a question from Grace, which says, what do you think is the best type of engineering in your opinion? Although you may be biased towards what you're currently doing.
Exactly. I mean, just try different things, see what you like to do. Would you rather develop bridges, like roads that maybe go towards civil engineering? Do you want to go to space? Do you love the space? You know, there are different types of engineering, so everyone is different. So just try to find something that you enjoy and try different things, and then you end up picking one. For me, it was biomedical because I really would like to help people. And that is why I decided on biomedical engineering, but it really depends on the person. So you just have to try different things, ask questions, and you will find something that you would enjoy.
Perfect. And then, so when you were younger, either of you, so Liz or Joanna, when you were younger, did you have any engineering ambitions at all? Liz, should we go with you? Liz, you're muted again. Sorry.
Yeah. So I hadn't had any direct engineering ambitions. I think as I was getting older, I had ambitions to go into science. And maybe I would have had ambitions to go into engineering if I'd known more about it. So I'd say that, you know, maybe I didn't directly have ambitions in terms of, yes, I want to be this type of engineer. And I don't think you really need to have that. But if you sort of, you know, I did think, you know, I liked making things, I liked finding things out. I knew I wanted to go into science, and if I'd known that engineering and biomedical engineering existed, I would have probably, would have had ambitions to go that way. And I recommend that you all think about it as a potential ambition. Now you know about it, think about it a bit more and explore it a bit more, and it might become your ambition, and then you might be able to go into a more direct route than maybe my indirect route to engineering, and that might be more enjoyable for you.
Amazing. And Joanna, what was your what kind of ambitions did you have? Did you have an ambition to go into engineering when you were younger?
To be honest, not really. I think it just, you know, with time, I try different things and I see what I like the best. For example, I tried to work on a lab, but I didn't really enjoy to be stuck on a lab, and I'm quite clumsy as well. So that was something that I decided not to go to. And again, blood is something that I don't really like. So yeah, it's just everything converts to engineering and biomedical engineering. And again, the role model of having someone that, you know, was doing something that I thought, oh, this looks good, this looks exciting. So this is why I decided to go through engineering. And of course, in Portugal, it's a bit different, the system. So we have to decide really early what type of engineering you have to do. But I guess in the UK, you can go to engineering and then you decide on which type of engineering you want to do. So that's easier. That way you can try different things and have different subjects and see what you like best.
Amazing. We have had a question come in that said, do we know the first female engineer? We don't know completely off the top of our heads, but we know that there was two called Elizabeth Bragg and Julia Morgan, who became the first female engineers to receive bachelor's degrees over in the USA, and that was back in 1876, which actually, when you think about the history, isn't too long ago. So females officially doing engineering has been very recent, but we have had engineers throughout time doing all sorts of things. Another pre-submitted question was from May, who has asked, what software do you use to help do engineering? So I don't know if Liz, you could possibly answer this, as I know you use a lot of software in what you do.
Yeah, so we use well, we kind of do a lot of stuff in MATLAB, so that's like a programming language and a programming software, and there's different packages you can run on there, and we do a lot of stuff from scratch as well. So for example, we develop kind of lots of code, and then we can, you know, those images that I showed you earlier, those are kind of lots of different scripts, so different we write lots of code, and then it all works together and comes out with a nice picture at the end. So kind of that's what a lot of stuff I do. There's also lots of, because I'm doing imaging, there's lots of cool software out there to kind of do some of it for you. So and particularly even though I'm in the liver, there's a lot of initially a lot of MRIs being in the brain. So we kind of borrow different software packages from different brain labs throughout the world. There's some from Oxford, for example, there's some from University College London and different things like that, and we kind of use those, and they're kind of specific for imaging processing, and there's so many different, now there's just programs coming out, different software packages coming out all the time that helps you in whatever area you're working in. And then you can also develop your own, which I think is the most exciting thing. I mean, it's nice having something that works from someone else, but if you can do it yourself, that's even more fun.
Perfect, that's great. And then we've had a question from Grace, which says, have you made any close friends while working in engineering? So we'll go to Joana, and have you made any close friends with your work?
Definitely. I think that is one of the best parts of our job, is to meet a lot of different people. And it's teamwork. Our work is a teamwork, definitely. Yeah, I made really close friends from all over the world. I have friends from New Zealand, from the United States, from Africa, you know, South Africa. Yes, and I consider them really close friends, some of them, because we create this connection not only through work but through common interests. So yes, that is definitely something that really motivates me to work in this area, is that I'm able to meet new people every day and work with amazing people with different backgrounds.
That sounds really cool. So we got another question about who inspired you to be an engineer. So we'll go over to Liz, as I believe Joanna's already answered this in her own way. So we'll see, Liz, who inspired you?
So for me, so after my degree, I started working for a company in Oxford called Perspectum, and there's this person there called Sir Mike Brady. So he's quite, I think he funded one of the Oxford buildings, the information building, and he's done a lot of research. I mean, he didn't start out in medical imaging, but he sort of started out in maths, then went to kind of image processing, and he's done lots of inspirational stuff. And he kind of really drove, he, you know, I hadn't really thought, as I've mentioned, I kind of knew what I liked, but I wasn't really sure it was engineering. And then he kind of opened my eyes really to see what engineering was and how actually that's who I am. I guess I never saw myself as an engineer, and it was only then that I kind of got the kind of like, oh, right, oh, so it's actually engineering that I like. And that's kind of, oh, I'm doing good to apply to this engineering science DPhil, which I'd a year or so before I wouldn't have even ever thought of. So I think there's these people out there who've got amazing careers and they're kind of really inspirational. They've done lots of things. He's got lots of spin out companies. He's supervised over 100 different PhDs, DPhil students. So, you know, really helped them along the way. He has a lot of knowledge, and I think those kind of people are the people that you kind of really want to aspire to be. He's obviously male and I'm female, but he's very encouraging to kind of for anyone and everyone anyone who shows, you know, an interest to really get on board and do engineering. I'd love to do the same to the next generation too.
Cool, that sounds really amazing. We've had another question that was pre-submitted, which is kind of looking forward into the future. At the time when anyone watching this, you guys might be engineers. What do you guys think is the most pressing challenge for engineering in the next decade? Should we go first to Liz and then we'll go over to Joana?
So I think, well, there's kind of, it depends what area of engineering. I think one overarching challenge is kind of this weighing up of, obviously engineering traditionally uses a lot of resources, and as we're kind of getting more knowledge and more skills, we kind of want to use as much as we can. We want to do things, we've got new ideas, we want to use and utilize it, and even things that you think, well, that doesn't use much resource. It's like computer power that takes a lot of energy. So, and I think we've got to weigh those up with the environment, because obviously we've only got a limited number of resources and we need to look after the environment whilst, you know, making people's lives as good as possible. And I think, but then specifically if you're thinking about medical engineering or biomedical engineering, I think a key thing is with the rise of artificial intelligence. Obviously this is a new kind of upcoming tool that we don't fully, you know, we haven't fully developed or understand yet, and we need to kind of use that in a way that's helpful to patients and help, and, you know, can help save lives. But obviously there's associated risks because it's new, and we need to really thoroughly explore those before we kind of roll these out. You know, some technologies are already there out in the clinic, but we need to be careful with whatever we're developing that it's actually not going to have some kind of flaw that we're not aware of. And we need to convince doctors and patients of this as well, because obviously it's a new thing. People are not so keen. We need to know the risks and they need to know the risks, but if it's, you know, going to be helpful, we need to get it into the clinic. So those are kind of the two pressing needs that I would say were important.
Okay, that sounds really cool. Lots of things coming up. Joana, do you have anything to add on to that about what you think the challenges for future engineers are going to be? What problems are engineers going to be trying to solve?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Liz. With more information, we have this thing called like big data. So we have to process a lot of information, and sometimes it's a bit overwhelming. But I guess the most pressing challenge, probably the environment. Yes, we have to be aware of that. We have to know how to develop things in an environmental conscious way, and of course with artificial intelligence, you know, people are developing robots that can do all sorts of things, and people are really sort of afraid they're going to take over, but I don't see it that way. I think engineering and technology will help. They will not remove anything. They will just help us doing, for example, surgery. You know, it will improve our lives, definitely. So I think the next couple of years are going to be important in terms of engineering, and we saw this in this COVID crisis. You know, there was the need for more ventilators, there is the need for faster diagnosis, and that is where engineering stepped in and help this issue.
That's great, and it's actually really shows how relevant engineering is at the moment, especially even more so than in normal life, as you'd call it. So we've had another question in from the live chat, which is there anyone else in your family that was or is currently an engineer? So Liz, is there anyone in your family that you know of who's an engineer?
So, so in terms of past, I haven't really delved into my family history, so I'm not sure about my ancient forebears. But in terms of my parents, neither of them were engineers. But my mum is actually quite much more practical than my dad, and I think she could have been in engineering if she wanted to be. My older brother is an engineer, so he's an electronics engineer, designing sensors. And he's a little bit older than me, and he went into engineering straight from school. And it's funny because although I've kind of been interested in what he's done, I'd be the more interested out of me, and like I've got a sister as well. But in terms of, I never really thought of he was the engineer, not me. And so it took me a long time to come round to it. So I think we've taken very different pathways, and I still don't really feel, he still feels like the proper engineer, and I don't know whether that will ever change. But so I think what I would say to you is don't expect your family to have like a major engineering. Like, neither of my parents would have ever considered being an engineer. And my dad's definitely much more of a kind of historian type of geography type person. So don't kind of think you need to have family members that do engineering. It's great if they do, because then you have someone to chat about, someone who understands why you're getting excited about something. But at the same time, don't limit yourself on what your parents or your family do. And also, but if your family do it, then maybe open your mind. Maybe you thought, oh, I'm not that, but I've got an engineer in my family, it's not me. But actually you might find that there can be two engineers, and an engineer is so diverse. Don't just think, well, it looks a bit boring what he does. He's an engineer and I don't really like it, because, there's so many types of engineering. It's such a broad discipline that you might actually like engineering, but just a different part.
Perfect. Shows how different it all is. We'll go over to Joana. And Joana, is there anyone in your family that is or was an engineer?
To my knowledge, no. Actually, I'm the first engineer in the family, the close family. So everyone was really proud of that. My sister actually eventually she did physics engineering. And then afterwards, she decided to become a medical doctor. So now she's a doctor. But I was the first one doing engineering. I am the first one to have done a DPhil. So yeah, and that also motivates me. When my parents are really proud of me becoming someone that can have an impact in life. Sometimes they don't really understand what I do, because it's MRI, it's not that easy to understand, but yeah, I think, yeah, and I'm proud to be an engineer and to manage to finish my degree and to do these DPhil.
Perfect. So it's really cool that you're the first one. You're kind of pioneering the way for your family. We've had a question that was pre-submitted from from Kanak, which was, what is the impact that being an engineer has on you? So how has it impacted in how you now approach life? So we go Joana first.
That's an interesting question. For me, because I'm doing research, it helped me to have like a strong background about everything. So I have good background in maths, physics, biology. So I think it was good for me to have this different background and have this knowledge. So that has a significant impact in my life. I'm not sure if I answered that question, but yeah, overall, I think being in engineering has motivated me to do bigger and better things overall.
That's pretty cool how it has actually motivated you in that way. Liz, have you had a similar experience of engineering in your life and how it's impacted you?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's kind of, I think it's similar, but also I'd add to that it kind of builds you up your resilience. So your approach to life. Some people, when they see a problem, it just kind of, they have a problem in their life, or they need to work something out, and they just kind of, they'll be scared of that. Whereas I think being an engineer, you're kind of used to coming up against obstacles all the time, and you kind of work your way around them, work how to solve them, or work how to cope with them for sometimes for a week. You might not be able to get the answer you want to get, or even longer, and you kind of got to then live with that. And I think that's something that's really helpful in everyday life, because things don't go right in everyday life, and if you kind of have those skills with you, then they'll really help you. And similarly, like, you know, just having that approach, I mean, is helpful. Problem solving and stuff like that's helpful once you get a house and things, and you have things going wrong. I mean, being an engineer is, having an engineer in the house is always quite useful. Someone who just thinks about things. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can solve everything, or you know you're going to wire up your whole house or whatever. Although it's great if you can or do that sort of thing. But if you kind of maybe less, you kind of have more of an open mind. You're more aware of things, how things work, how things work together and things like that. Then that's kind of helpful.
That's really cool. And yeah, as you say, if you can wire up your house because of your engineering background, that would also be a bonus. A question for both of you, really. So Liz, we'll start with you. Do you think you can inspire anyone else to become an engineer?
Well, I'd like to think that I'd inspire people. I guess that's up to people whether they think it's inspiration. I'm inspirational. But I think absolutely. I think that the things I would say about engineering and kind of it being a really cool subject that is one that I think people aren't so aware of. Maybe they're just aware of kind of some traditional fields of engineering, and I think that, you know, the more you find about engineering, the more inspirational it is. The more, like, I've had lots of people that have inspired me, and that's why I've kind of got involved with this sort of thing, because I think there's so much there, and I just want to raise awareness and inspire future generations to follow on and think, wow, that's cool, I want to do that, and I never thought of that before. But actually, and that's what happened to me, I didn't really know about it. I wish I did in a way, but I haven't. So when I was your age, and I haven't, so I've just had to live with that. But if I can make people aware when they're younger, and then they can think about it up through, you know, you don't need to decide tonight, oh, from that I've been inspired to be an engineer, I'm now going to be an engineer, and that's what I've decided. Like, I don't expect you to kind of do that, but maybe over time you'd sort of find out more about it, look at some of the videos Joana talked about, Google some stuff, and then over time come to the conclusion that actually maybe engineering is for you. Then I think that's great, and I would encourage you and hopefully inspire you to do that.
That's brilliant. And then finally, we'll ask Joana the same, basically. Do you think you can inspire anyone else to become an engineer?
Well, at least I hope so. Yes, I think, again, ask questions. I'm more than happy if you have any questions to share my email, that you can ask me anything you want. I'll be happy to answer them. But again, ask questions, search, like Google videos, try to learn what an engineer is. And yes, and just ask questions and be curious. And I think that's the important thing to become an engineer, actually.
Perfect. Well, thank you both very, very much for everything. We're just coming up to 11 o'clock now, so we will wrap it up there with that very nice, inspirational final question. We will share a transcript of all of the Q&As that have happened so far, and also throughout the rest of the day with our other engineers that we've got speaking to other age groups. And so we'll share those with you all in an email after this. And if you have any follow-up questions, please do email them through to us, and I will pass them on to Joana and Liz as we get them. But yeah, I've been asked to also share with you one other thing. So all of Liz and Joana have both got profiles on our website at the moment for International Women in Engineering Day, and so have many of our other academics and female engineers in Oxford. If you're interested in finding out more about what Liz and Joana do on a day-to-day basis, or to see what other engineers do and also what Emma does, please go and have a look online where all the profiles can be found. We'll also share with you via email the video of Emma's research and what Emma does on a day-to-day basis. Sorry, she couldn't be here for much longer today. She was pulled away quite last minute. But thank you all for your time with everything here. And if you've got any comments or queries or anything else, please email them through to us. We'll be more than happy to answer them. And thank you again to both of our speakers. So thank you very much, everyone.